Well, you got latex gloves on and a mask on. Go buy your cucumbers. Don't impose your fear on the rest of us. Wash those things before you eat them, because most people do anyway. And if you don't, you're kind of silly, because they've been handled by who knows how many people. Everybody washes their fruits and vegetables before they eat them. There's a certain a level of hygiene most of us live to. And put the onus on them. And to me, that's been always the way to do this. But instead, the government, because it's easier, punishes the retailer if a customer says, no, I'm not playing that game, with huge fines. So they make the bad guy the retailer, who goes around and has to throw people out of the store, refuse business, turn business away when they desperately need it. It just doesn't make any sense. And this is what drives people crazy. And for all these reasons, for the bungling of this thing from beginning to end, Doug Ford needs to resign. He needs to step down. There needs to be a leadership review, a new leader chosen, and somebody needs to be elected to that post who isn't going to follow, along the fear, down the path of fear, and use some common sense. If you actually think this is a real health problem or a real issue, deal with it like it is. No more flights into Pearson. That's federal. But no more punishing the little restaurants. No more punishing businesses who are just struggling to survive, because our economy sooner or later has to come back. But if you burn it to the ground, it's going to take many decades longer to come back from.
I see that at Sunnybrook Hospital in Toronto that they're setting up temporary hospital facilities in one of their parking lots, which I think is a good thing to do. I think as a reaction to an exceptional situation, whether it's COVID or it's something else, okay? It could be anything.
Yeah.
I think that's the right thing to do. And last week, a week ago now, on April 12th or 13th, the health minister in Ontario, Christine Elliott, announced that the province was going to be exploring ways to bump up the capacity of ICU beds, the number of ICU beds in the province, to deal with the larger number of cases, okay? And I'm just checking some of the statistics here online, Nick, what I'm reading here is that Ontario, as of last year, had 1,122 ICU beds, okay, available. So 1,120 ICU beds.
That's how many we have available?
For the entire province of Ontario. That was before all of this started. Now, why not? And I don't underrate the complexity, and I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but I don't underrate the complexity and the cost involved in bumping that capacity up. You have to have equipment. You have to have trained personnel. All right. Well, to me, this is common sense. You know that there's going to be a second and a third wave. We knew this last year. Why not create temporary ICU facilities in and around hospital centers in the major urban centers in Ontario? And if you have to have trained people to be running them, well, fine. Put out the call for trained nurses to come from other provinces or from other countries, for that matter. I mean, we do this. This is if it's an emergency, treat it like it's an emergency, not just a normal policy thing where we're going to study it for 3 months, we're going to kick it around and things like that. Bang! All of a sudden, now it becomes an emergency, and we don't have the capacity to deal with it. So what are we going to do? We're going to virtually put free citizens under house arrest. And why? Because we didn't have the foresight to take the measures that we had to take. And I'm not talking about closing things down. People have to understand that the reason that we're doing this is because the government, first of all, we're rationing health care in this country to start with, okay? And even when we know there's an emergency down the road, we don't plan for it.
Well, that's traditional Canadian thinking. We always kick the can down the road. It's whether it's budgetary, whether it's infrastructure, and even then when we do try and do it, we usually, certainly in the last few decades, one of my favorite examples of not doing it right was when, what was her name? Liberal Premier, I can see her face.
What?
Ontario. Female Liberal Premier after Dalton McGuinness.
Kathleen Wynne.
Yeah, Kathleen Wynne. Went to Highway 11 up there near Kenora, I think. There was a bridge over a river. And in the fall, she cut the ribbon on this brand new bridge, okay? Now, what is it with liberals and bridges anyway? They just can't seem to build these things. So in January, when it got really cold, the bridge heaved by 18 inches. It was a miracle nobody was killed. And they had to reroute traffic through Minnesota to get people to be able to continue their journey to the west, because it's the only road link we have from Ontario to Manitoba. So how the devil, if they can't do that, if they can't figure out that metal contracts in the wintertime, the ground expands in the wintertime, and there could be things like movement that you have to account for in the proper construction of a bridge because of the heating and cooling of the earth and of the bridge itself. How in God's name are they ever supposed to run or manage a serious health issue? I don't trust them to cross the street without getting run over by a dump truck. They wouldn't look both ways.
I don't know. Anyway, what am I supposed to say to all this, Nick? Or what is anybody supposed to say? The bottom line is this, okay? Our friends in the Conservative government, okay, this is the thing. We Conservatives have to hold our own elected officials, our own party, accountable when things go wrong. Yes, I believe in loyalty. Yes, I believe that, you have to not circle the wagons, but you look out for one another. All of that is true, but in the final analysis, okay, we're elected, governments are elected to serve the country. And when it turns out that something is going wrong and it's obvious that there's a certain element of incompetence in the government that you are the party a member of, you have to take action. You owe it not just to the country, you owe it to the party as well, because ultimately I don't know how you're helping the party by defending idiotic actions here.
Well, what about personal integrity? What about taking pride in doing your job well?
Yeah.
I mean, where did all that go?
Well, and that's the kind of thing that we Conservatives are supposed to stand for.
Well, we haven't been. All we've been standing on lately is quicksand, and we're up to our necks in it because the Liberals and there's very little difference either at the provincial or federal level between the Conservatives and the Liberals. It's barely. It's not even the color of their suit anymore. I mean, they call themselves Conservatives, but they don't behave like one. They don't believe in a lot of the founding principles or the foundational principles of conservatism. And they haven't implemented a policy that you could say is actually conservative in probably 10 or 15 years. Everything else is just liberal light, like climate change, you name the issue. I mean, it's enough to make you just want to pull your beard out, thread it through a needle, and shoot it out of a cannon. I mean, it's just crazy.
Nick's only saying that because I have a beard.
Well, I could have one, but I can't stand it. It gets 3/4 of an inch long. It gets too itchy. You have to shave it off.
Well, you have to be like me. It's got to be 6 inches long.
I can't get it to that point.
Oh, yes, you can.
No, I can't.
You grow.
No, it just shave it off.
Well, no, it stops. It stops itching.
I know it does. I've been told that 100 times, and I just can't. I can't. I'm not a beard guy.
This is us. Okay, I don't know. I've got to.
How do we end up on that?
We sort of all of a sudden we went back under Earth Day mode.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I've been listening too much of Horatio Hornblower audiobooks.
It was probably, you know what I'm thinking? There was probably some subliminal hypnosis in that Earth Day yoga class or something.
We're still kind of seeing stars over that one.
Oh my goodness gracious! All right. Well, look, I don't know what to say. It's the subject that just won't go away. This COVID stuff, but Anyway, we're going to see what's going to happen. I don't think that the Premier is going to resign.
No, I don't think so either.
But I'm tired of backbenchers not holding their leadership accountable, and that really troubles me because that's not the way our system is supposed to work. Our system, our Constitution, demands, requires that backbenchers hold their leaders accountable, and that is a fundamental Westminster system principle, and they're just not doing it, Nick. And that I just find that incredibly problematic. The Prime Minister or the Premier, the leader of the party, we used to have a term for him or her: first amongst equals. Okay, first amongst equals, which means he or she is not on a higher level than the rest of the elected members of the caucus, and the caucus has to collectively hold the leader and the leader's team to account. So, enough said. I wish we didn't have to every week have something new to talk about on this subject, but I guess we do. Anyway, stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. Budget time coming up. We're going to be discussing the budget in the next 2 segments. So if you're listening to the show live, stay with us. If you're listening to us on the podcast, thanks for joining us. And please make sure you tune in on Monday morning and Tuesday morning for our 2 sections on this year's, finally, a federal budget.
Yeah, after 2 years.
So it's going to be exciting. We'll be back in a few minutes here on the Nick and Joe Show on ThinkRadio.ca.